All right. I think we're working. Looking pretty good. All right. Let's see if this works. Come on, YouTube. All right. All right, I think we're working. I think we're live. Let's see if this is working now. All right. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and welcome to another live video here on YouTube. I think we're working. All right. Hopefully this should be an interesting video. I want to answer a few questions I've received from learners. Some of these, tsubatsu desu there, ohayou gozaimasu. But yeah, it should be an interesting video. I want to talk about how natives learn, so you can do the same thing. All right, nice to see people joining us. If you do have questions, please post them in the chat. I will go pretty quickly through this lesson, but hopefully, again, if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer those as well. Gerson, nice to see you there. Junior and George is back. Nice to see everybody. All right, before I begin the video, I wanted to say that this is a little bit, I guess, the opposite of what most people think. See, often learners think that there is a native speaker, like you were born a native speaker and then you get fluent because you're native. But actually what's happening is people are born the same way all over the world. So I could take a baby from China, put that baby in the United States, and that baby would grow up becoming a fluent English speaker. So it's not who the person is, it's just how the person learns. And so I call this how to learn like a native because people think about it that way, but this is really just how to learn the same way natives are learning. But it's just the people who would learn English as a first language rather than learning English through a second language. So let's look at some questions, some just interesting things I've received from Fluent for Life members. And I thought I would share them with everybody because they were just interesting things to think about. So a lot of what we do in the program and even on the channel is just trying to help people think more like a native so that you can speak without hesitating or translating. So I want to begin with looking at my own kids and how they become fluent both in English and Japanese. So I have two daughters, an older 8-year-old and then a younger 5-year-old. And so I want to just go through a very simple example of how they're learning so you can learn the same way. Usually what we're doing, and I don't like teach them lessons. We actually do have a whiteboard at home, but I do just try to help them compare things and understand things without needing another language to do that. So we begin with even something simple like I want. And they hear this over and over and over again. They know like I and then want, and then we contrast this with something like I have. So I want something and I have something. So let's say I have a marker. So right now my kids would understand that I'm holding something, or I have a purple shirt, but I want something else. So it's something I don't have. All right. So I have a purple shirt, but I want a blue shirt. I would like a different color shirt actually. And so you can understand this, like most people, especially when they're starting to learn the language, this is something that's very easy to translate from your language into English if you're not just learning it like a native speaker would learn it. So if you're not learning it as a first language, you would get like a translation of something, but we can understand this. It's a very simple sentence. And so we continue from here. Once we understand, okay, I want, now we can think about what do you want? And we can make the sentence a little bit more complicated. So I want, what do I want? I want some juice. Very easy. I want juice. Or you could even say, I want a juice, like a container of juice, or I want some juice, or I want orange juice, something like that. But we really just want to keep the sentence very simple because we're helping native kids understand the language in steps like this. So you begin with something simple like I want, and then you move up like this and make the sentence a little bit more complicated. All right? So Turno is getting ahead of me over here. But we begin with something very simple again, like I want a blue marker. All right? So I want a blue marker, I want a red marker, I want a black marker. Anything like this where we can just see something physical, we can understand how the grammar works. So we're learning the pronunciation, we're learning the grammar, we're learning vocabulary at the same time. And this is, again, how kids are learning English. And it works the same in your language as well. You begin with simple things that people can understand, and then you start making them more complex. All right? So we want to do this because it's easy to translate when a sentence is simple, but if you start getting more complicated, it becomes more difficult to understand. All right? So we don't want you to translate at the beginning. That way you can understand things without needing to translate later when you get more complicated. All right? So now we have I want juice, or I want any physical thing, something I can touch, or even something you can't touch. Like I want a college degree. I want freedom. I want justice. You know, we can even think about something more complicated than that, that a child would not yet understand. But the point is that we're still using the same basic grammar. We're just switching one word for another one. Okay? So we move on from this, from talking about a physical thing or just like a noun, something you might want, to talking about a verb. We got an example of that before. So I want to do something. So I want to go. I want to play. I want to eat. So you're thinking just like this, like I want juice, or I want, this is that activity. So you can think about it in the same way a native would think about it, like yeah, I want like playing soccer. I want to play soccer. I want to play soccer. I want to go outside. I want to enjoy the day. I want to teach. I want to eat. I want to play. I want to go. All right? It's the same idea. We're just talking about a thing, or we're talking about an action. That's it. So I want to do something. And again, we can switch this out with have, like we had previously. So we talked about I want rather than I have. So I could say I have some juice. Or we could say I want to drink juice. Same idea. So very simple. Again, I want to keep this very simple. I'm sure you all know this, but as we get more complicated, it's easy if you start understanding it in these simple steps the same way a child would. All right? So what it means to learn like a child is you start understanding everything all in the native language, so you don't need another language to translate or learn through, and then you just work up through these steps to make sure you understand everything. Hopefully everybody understands this so far. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But it should be pretty easy to understand. So I want juice, I want to do something. So let's just say I want to make it nice and simple. Go, let's just say I want to go. All right, very easy. I want to go. And now we can make it a little bit more complicated. Remember, you can think about how children would be using these things as they're talking with their parents. So often little kids just say, I want. Like I want something, I want this toy, or I want something like that. So they understand I want, and then they can name that thing, or they can name the specific thing they want to do. I want to go to school. I want to go to the party. But now we get a little bit more complicated, like I want you to do something. Let's say I want you to go. It's still the same idea. So you want, this is the thing you want. So you want, instead of a thing or an action, you want someone else to do something. Okay? So I want you to go. I want you to come to the party. All right? So you go, this is the idea, and then this is the thing that I want. So I want this thing to happen. All right? I want you to go to the party. Okay? Hopefully this makes sense. I don't need to get super complicated with this unless you have more questions about it. But the point is, when you're trying to learn grammar, you might begin with a longer sentence, like I have to think about doing something. So you would begin with a longer sentence. What I'm suggesting, what I'm recommending, is that you try to make that sentence as simple as possible and see where you get stuck. So where do you get stuck? So if you know, okay, I understand I want, and then I want some juice. Okay, I understand that. I understand this part, but where do you get stuck here? So what are you getting stuck about? So I want someone else to do something for me or just to do something in general. So I want you to learn like a native. I want you to learn like a native. Or I can make it slightly more complicated, like he wants. So he wants you to do something. He wants you to do something. So same idea, but the point is I want you to control the sentence to think about where you actually get stuck. So rather than trying to translate a more difficult sentence, try to make the sentence simple. And then if you hopefully don't need translations, you can understand that and then work backwards to see, okay, can I understand the sentence in a more complicated way or a more complicated sentence? Does everybody get that idea? All right, let me go back through chat and then we'll see if anybody has questions about this. Nice to see lots of people here though. Hello, everybody. Let's see if I can go very quickly through people. All right, Anya, nice to see you there. Antonio, hello. Junior, hello. All right, I am the shark, says Soterno. Robin, nice to see you there. Good morning, Ganjam Junior. Hello, listening to another video. Glad to hear it. All right, from Sao Paulo, Brazil, says Wellington. Lorama, I am from Brazil. Nice to see you there. All right, hello from Seattle. Thanks, Adrian. Oh, I lived in Seattle for a while. Nils, nice to see you there. Yeah, I bet it is cold in Wisconsin right now. Dalio, nice to see you from Príncipe. Nice to see you there. Glad to hear you. Glad to meet you. Says Junior again. All right, so Turner says, I want to. So you would say, I want to learn English. And this is the pattern you get. So you can think about it logically like, I want learning English. Like that, like I want this thing. But the way we construct the sentence is, I want to do something. So I want to go, I want to play, I want to leave. Miriam says, I can't believe I finally caught the live. Wow, well, welcome to the party. All right, Laura, listen, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name, Laurama, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I like how you teach. Well, it's my pleasure. All right, hello again, says Sandra, nice to see you there. Again, let's see here. So much respect for you, Drew, for this creative, engaging teaching technique. It's my pleasure. I really want people to understand I don't have a special technique. I'm just helping you understand the way natives learn the language. That's it. And what I mean, like the point of this video is just to show you that there's really no such thing as a native speaker. It's just either it's a person who learns English as a first language or someone who learns English as a second language, like you're learning it through some other language like that. So you're not born native, you just become native, what we would call native. It's just because of how you learn. And this means that anybody can learn this way. So as soon as you start learning English as a native speaker, you start learning English as a first language, then you can start speaking the same way too. All right, Beganik says, hi, Andrew. I have no difficulty with my name pronouncing. It's Bega for short. From Turkmenistan, okay. You are the reason of my waking up so early at 6:03. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here, Bega. Marion, greetings from, you're in Vancouver, okay. Hack Wizards Army says, hello, everyone. All right, explain about ing, says Wellington. What about ing would you like to know? I want you to go to the party. Yes. Hello, everyone. How do you pronounce want? With a T or no T? Well, it depends on the situation, like how quickly you want to say it. So right now I say want. So in a video like this where I want to speak more clearly, I will pronounce those words. But often in a regular conversation with natives, I would just say, yeah, I want. So I leave a space for that I want, but I don't really pronounce the T. So listen carefully, and this is why it's also a good reason to read transcripts as you maybe watch videos or you're listening to people speak on a podcast. So I want to make sure I subscribe to this channel. Very good. I want to make sure. How do you pronounce juice? Juice again. Also, Earth Sky, if you'd like to hear me pronounce lots of different words and understand pronunciation the same way natives do, you can click on the link in the description below this video to get Frederick. Hugo Rez, let's see. From India. Okay, nice to see you there. All right, he's a good teacher. Well, I try. Joseph Alexander says, I'm learning words through context following the EFL method and then create my own sentences, approximately 40 words per sentence. 40 words per sentence. How can I know if the sentence is well written is my routine? Okay, do you mean you actually put 40 words in the same sentence? Is that what you mean? I don't think so. I definitely would not recommend that if you can understand that, but I would like to see a sentence with 40 words in it that you could understand. It would be like a lot of like clauses or like a list of something. But the point here is that grammar is like a staircase in this way. And you don't need to make a complex sentence to understand something. Really, we're taking pieces and putting them together. And so if you understand these basic things really well and you understand them without translating, then it's much easier to use them. So you don't need to make a really long sentence in order to do this. The point is really to take the sentence and change it slightly, like we have, I want you to go. And then we just change it to he wants you to go. So we don't want to change the whole sentence. We really want to give our brain something like an anchor to hold on to. So we change it's like a pivot. You change something a little bit. We're still connected. I want you to go, or he wants you to go, or they want you to go. Something like that, where we're changing it just a little bit so we still understand. All right, so this is how we learn new things. And this is also why I recommend, if you're learning, like you're watching something like a movie, or you're trying to read a book or listen to a podcast, you should understand most of what you're hearing or reading already. So if I read something and I don't understand half of it, it's going to be very frustrating for me because I won't understand the words, like if I'm trying to improve my Japanese. So I would not want to study something that I don't really understand. I want to add slowly things that I do understand, and then that way I will understand any new sentences from context. So don't make it too complicated for yourself. Keep the sentences short and simple, as long as you can understand them. All right, nice English lesson for you. Glad to hear. All right, Ganshamps, I want some wine. Why does this happen? Sometimes I get a little frustrated. It's okay. So my really difficult, so you would say my difficulty or my real difficulty is understanding conversation. Yeah, so we talk about that a lot on this channel, and the reason for that is because the way you learn English in school, or even typically through YouTube videos or however else you're learning, it's still the same traditional methods that make the language more difficult to understand, and the language is also different from how natives actually speak. So you can hear right now I'm really just speaking very clearly, slowly, using English that I'm pretty sure you would understand, rather than some random movie quotes or other things or cultural references that you would probably not understand. And so if you don't prepare for real conversations with the kind of learning and the kind of information you would need for those, then you're going to have trouble understanding native speakers. So if you'd like to learn more about that, that's what we do in Fluent for Life. We prepare you to understand natives and have good conversations. All right, let's see. Gerson says about idioms. You have a question about idioms? Let me know. Hamza says, hi, greetings from Syria. Look at that, people all over the place. All right, Miriam, I want to cancel my yoga class to stay on this amazing live. Just watch it later. You can do both. You don't have to choose. There's nothing. I mean, you can ask a question. That's about the only extra benefit you get from being on the video live, but it's still the same information. So Eternal says, Drew, you are the best. All right, you're too kind. You were too kind. Wellington, ing in the verb example, I want to going. Is that correct? No, we would not say that. We would just say, I want to go. I want to go. So this is a very specific construction where we talk about I want. And I repeat these things because I want you to understand these patterns. I want you to understand these patterns. All right, so it's important for me that you do that, but I want you to understand these patterns. Now, the reason it gets tricky, we can change the pattern to something like, let's say we erase this down here. I really like this blue. Let me try black. So it gets a little bit tricky for people because if we change the verb here, so instead of I want, let's say I like. Now here, when you like something, we could actually say that. So I like to fish. I like to fish. Or you could say I like fishing. I like fishing. So I don't want to explain a lot about the grammar because I wouldn't explain a lot about the grammar to my own kids. The point is to recognize the patterns the same way natives do, and then you will get used to those things. Oh, like I like to fish or I like fishing. So both of those are fine. But we don't say I want to go or I want going. We don't say that. All right? So as a learner who is an adult, so as an adult learner, you use your logical brain to figure out why. You're like, well, why is this? You want to know, and like that's part of the reason that it makes it frustrating for people to try to learn grammar, and then they just want to translate sentences to make things easier. But I promise you, if you really get many, many examples the same way natives do, you will simply accept that that's how things are, okay? So this is part of how the language works. You certainly can learn more about like why exactly like one verb does this and one verb does not. But then it would just be a lot easier if you're like a child. So a child doesn't really ask questions. They do as they get older, but when they're very young, like they typically don't think much about it. They will recognize things that are like when the pattern gets broken. So it's like the pattern being broken here. But if you just repeat things again and again, often the kids will just figure it out. Because what kids are really trying to do is connect vocabulary with situations, and so they understand the patterns this way. So rather than having like a rule or a translation you're trying to study, this is the way you would understand it better, so that you can use it without thinking or translating. So the point is to get lots of examples. So when you hear I like to fish or I like fishing, there's no difference between these sentences. You can say both of those. You will hear natives use both of those, and they don't really mean anything differently when we're talking about that. I'll give another example after this about a slight variation on when natives can talk about the same situation but from a slightly different angle. So they mean something slightly different, but they could be talking about the same situation. So I'll cover that in just a minute. But the point is here, we really want to just understand things, review, and get lots of pattern recognition going. So that's how we can understand things the same way a native child would, so we can use them fluently. All right. So I know you will be tempted, you will want to try to understand, well, why does this work and why does that work? But I promise you that information will not help you speak better. There might be some things you learn where like, oh, that's an interesting origin about the language, or some linguistic information about the language, some reasons why we do this. But it will typically be like, well, this is a certain kind of verb and this is a different kind of verb, and you're just going to complicate your mind with that. So if natives don't know that information, then it's better for you to not worry about that information either, okay? All right, so keep it simple. We just want to focus on pattern recognition by getting lots of examples, and that way you can keep your mind open. Most of the time you will just accept the vocabulary the same way a native would. And you would think, oh, that's interesting. People say this word in this situation, rather than you trying to translate or think about rules. Right, Juan says, good greetings from, is that Tennessee? I don't know, maybe you're in Tennessee, I guess. Let's see, nice English lesson for you. Okay, I answered that one already. Okay, let's see. Miriam says, whenever I'm bored, I watch your lives and I learn more. I bought Fluent for Life package and it's amazing. Your name should stand out among other English teachers. Well, again, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining it. I'm glad it's helping you. If you know other people who would like it, let them know. Tell them about the program. Let's see. Cannon says, hi, Mr. Drew, glad to hear it. Margaret says, hello, everyone. Miriam again. Even when you teach us different types of movies, which are better for learning. I'm not just learning the language, it's looking at different material differently. Yes. And so the language it's just a medium for communication. And if you focus on the activity or the thing and you kind of allow your mind to accept that as long as it's understandable for you, then you will feel a lot more confident as you learn. Let's see. You raised my confidence in spoken English from 20% to 90% in just 3 months. I followed you, although I learned the language about 2 decades. Yeah, so there are two different ways really for people learning the language. I'm really glad to hear that, though. That's great. People often ask me, or actually working on like a new article on our site about how long it takes to get fluent in English, and the point I keep making to learners is that it actually doesn't take very long to learn. The problem is just people think that language learning is difficult because most teaching is hard to understand. And it's the understanding that really makes the language communication much easier. So if you learn something, but you don't really understand it, or you have doubts and concerns or questions or worries about grammar, pronunciation, anything else, that will stop you from speaking. And natives will do this too. So as an example, maybe a native would be trying to write something, like they're writing it by hand, or even just typing something. If they forget how to spell a word, they will just use a different word instead. And this happens to people a lot. This is kind of a joke in English because the spelling rules do seem quite complicated. But it's the same idea. So if you're learning, you could learn English for many, many years and not become a confident speaker if you're learning with traditional methods that actually make the language more complicated and harder to understand. Alejandro, let's see. Could I get these examples from movies and practice with them? Yes, you could. So usually, just as an example from Fluent for Life, usually what we do, because a conversation will have, for example, many different maybe expressions or even grammar points. So I could have many different grammar points featured in the same conversation. But in each lesson set, we really just want you to focus on maybe one or two things and get lots of examples of that. So like I've given this example before, but if you imagine like I'm a baseball coach and I have a son who's trying to learn how to play baseball, the typical thing for a parent to do is to yell out many different things like, oh no, run faster or throw the ball better or hit this way or do that other thing. But the better thing to do is just to say, son, today I want you to focus on this one thing. I don't care if you drop the ball, I don't care if you don't run or whatever, but just try to like watch the ball. That's all I want you to do today. And so we know that playing baseball it's not going to be a one-day event. So we don't have to worry about trying to fix every problem at the same time. So in the same way, when I'm making these lesson sets for Fluent for Life, what we do is just have a focus for something. So even though you will see examples of lots of other grammar points, we really would just want you to focus on a particular thing. And that focus is really what gets you fluent faster. All right, I just says, please activate the translation into Arabic, thank you. I don't know how to do that, but we will have, when we're making the live like this, there is no transcription because Google doesn't do that automatically at the same time. But it does come out, I don't know, I think a day later. Let's see, Part says, hello, thanks for the live. I read Japanese comic manga in English. Do you think they are useful for learning the language? Yes, anything, I mean, as long as it's actual native speech. So if you're reading a manga in English, just like I read manga in Japanese, to help me learn some Japanese. So Miriam says, the other day I faced the word furcation at work. Then I looked at the root word and learned from you that it was to fork. And that explains enough not to forget the word and to use it properly in slightly different context. Yeah, and so this is where we also get like bifurcation, to bifurcate, to cut something like that, to bifurcate. Good evening, teacher, says Manuel. Kanun says, got it. All right, Neil says, You think from my soul. Sometimes I think so complicated and think, why? Yeah, it's a natural thing as adults, and also because we've been trained for many years to think about grammar rules. So we're trying to understand why something works rather than just connecting the vocabulary with the situation. It seems very simple, but it's just, we're like, why does it do that? Obviously, we also have grammar rules from our native language, our first language in our head already. So when we're trying to do something different, we wonder, well, why do they do that? Like in English and Spanish, the noun and the adjective are reversed. So in English, I would say like red car, but Spanish is like el coche roja. And so it's like, why do they do that? Or why do they say la or el? You know, I could think about why that is, but it's more like, it's more fun for me to try to understand that when people are in this situation or they're talking about this, that's what they say. So if I can think about that and then I can guess after I understand it, then I feel much more confident I can say the same thing. All right. So try not to worry about that. If you still need help, you know, like, okay, I really don't get something, I need to understand the origin of this or the logic behind it, then we can talk about that. But for the most part, it's not really that necessary. Let's see, mine says boa noite, I don't know what that means. Ganjam, I want everyone should say, this says, you say learning English is the first language, but everyone does the language hard, their self and someone who learns a language. Yes, let me make that less complicated. Make it easy for yourself. Learn English as a first language as opposed to trying to learn it through, you know, your translations or whatever. Let's see. Danielle says, lindo. I think, doesn't that mean like handsome in Spanish, I think? Let's see. Anu says, hello, Danielle. Hi, how are you? Okay. All right, talking about the teacher with the K. Okay, that's the laughing. I like the ways, like different languages. So in Japan, you will have like www like on there. I don't know if you're talking to each other or talking to yourselves, but we've gotten through these comments. So let me go to another example, just to see another thing that I had. So this is another question from actually the same Fluent for Life member that we got a little while ago. Actually, I think maybe it was different. Let me check. Yeah, okay. Actually, a couple of people have asked about this, so I want to cover this as well. Now, let's say we're talking about time. We talked about prepositions in a recent video, so I wanted to compare in So in 5 minutes, for 5 minutes, or since, let me write that more clearly, since 5 minutes ago. Since 5 minutes ago. All right, now when we're talking about something, as I said before, and I say this in every video, natives can express an idea or something, they want whatever they're talking about, in different ways. But sometimes the slight nuance in the meaning, it will be a little bit different, but you can still express the same idea in different ways. But I wanted to, again, just start with something very simple like this, and then we can make the complex, or make the sentence more complex. So in 5 minutes, I know if you think about just this by itself, in 5 minutes, you're thinking about the future. You're thinking about kind of like, I will do there, or I will be at your house in 5 minutes. So 5 minutes from this point. 5 minutes from this point. But I just want to talk about these words just with this idea by itself, about the slight difference in nuance for comparing these different words. So let's say the situation is we have a person now, so we'll just say this is now on our timeline here. So this is the future and this is the past. And let's say someone started something, let's say 1 year ago. So when we talk about the past from now, we talk about ago. So let's just say 1 year ago, 1 year ago. Now, if we're talking about something like, let's say instead of 5 minutes, we'll say 1 year. So in 1 year, we're talking about a time period, but it just means like at some point, anytime. So this is in that time period. This is in that time period. Here, here, here. I mean, I really mean along this line here in the timeline. But we can talk about any time here. This is in that time period. Now, for, we're actually talking about the whole period. So when you hear people talking about like, I haven't, we'll write a longer sentence here. So I haven't done, let's see, I've done, what do they do? I haven't done it. Just very simple, in 1 year or for or since, okay? So I haven't, let's say, we'll make this a bit more, I haven't I haven't gone, since we did fishing before. So I haven't gone fishing in 1 year. So when we talk about like, here's a 1 year period, so I didn't go fishing here or here or here or here or here or here or here at any time in this time period. So this is when we would say in. So in this time period, within this time period, I have not done something, okay? So if I end the sentence here, so I haven't gone fishing, this just means I've never done something. So I haven't gone fishing ever in my life. I haven't gone fishing. I haven't gone fishing. I haven't gone fishing, okay? So just to start with something nice and simple, it means I do not have this experience. I don't want to spend a lot of time on have. I've done videos about this. You can search the channel for them if you want to understand this. But the basic idea is you can have a thing, like I have a marker, I have green eyes, or I can have an experience. Okay, so the experience becomes a part of me, just like my hair or my mouth or my ears, or it's part of who I am. So that's why we can say I have something. So I have that experience. All right, so I haven't gone fishing. I don't have the experience of that. But we're talking about within this time period, you might hear a person say, I haven't gone fishing in 1 year. I haven't gone fishing in 1 year. So we're talking about from today, in the past year, I have not gone fishing. So maybe the person went fishing before that, but in the past year, they did not. So when we hear in 1 year or in the past year, both of those are fine. So in the past year. All right, so I haven't gone fishing in the past year. We're talking about just any time inside this time period, okay? Or we could hear someone say, I haven't gone fishing for 1 year. Now, what they mean when they say that is they're talking about the time period. So they're not talking about like inside the time period, they're talking about the time period itself, okay? This is a subtle, slight nuance. I'm trying to give you like a little bit of understanding. Natives aren't thinking about it that deeply, and that's why you will hear people use all three of these things and without even thinking about it. But just so you understand the subtle difference, because again, as I mentioned before, I know people are trying to think logically and understand how it works. So sometimes it is helpful to get some explanations about things, but I'm really trying to help you understand the way natives think about this, or the way natives would explain this if you asked them. So I haven't gone fishing ever, all right? That's like my whole life. I haven't gone fishing. I've never done that thing, all right? But if I say I haven't gone fishing in 1 year, we're talking about within this time period. I don't have any experience within this time period. For, we're still talking about like the time period itself, all right? We're not talking about like a particular time. It's just during this whole period, I didn't do that. So for and in, it's really the same thing, but this is the slight difference in nuance. Are you talking about like there is no experience within this, or you're just talking about the time period itself? Okay, that's it. Since is a little bit different from both of those, but you could use it in the same sentence, in the same way. And so I haven't gone fishing since, like, I don't know, since like a year ago. And in that way, the thing we're focusing on is the time period when it began. So we know now that's like implied, and we know the beginning. So it's 3 different ways of talking about the same thing. So all of these are fine. You can use all these. The grammar is slightly different. The nuance is slightly different, but this is why you would hear people, like different natives, would express the same thing with different vocabulary, and it means basically the same thing, but you can see how it's slightly different. So in, we're talking about, like, imagine it like a box within a time period, or for, we're talking about the whole time period itself, or since, we're just saying it started here. That's when we care about. But it's basically, it's just different ways of talking about the same thing. All right? I hope this makes sense. So I haven't gone fishing in 1 year. I haven't gone fishing for 1 year. All right, same idea. I haven't gone fishing since whatever the time period, or since a year ago. All right, or since last year. There are different ways you can express it, but the point is, I don't want you to get stuck thinking like, wait a minute, he said in, but that other person said for. Oh no. Again, the point is to accept these different things, because there are many different ways to express an idea. The same way you would do it in your native language. I'm pretty sure every language has the same idea. Okay? So you would be able to express the same thing in slightly different ways, and the nuance might be a little bit different, but it's really essentially the same thing. All right? I think someone just asked for subtitles over here. Remember, when these videos are live, there are no subtitles for them, because Google or YouTube is not able to just make subtitles while I'm speaking. That would be great. If possible, maybe in the future that will happen. But all right, let's see. Miriam says, the most challenging matter in speaking English for me is telling a story happened to me, since I can't use complex sentences with multiple tenses. Instead, I stay quiet when they asked, how was your weekend? All right. So as an example, if you want to talk about something, you can still express yourself with simple sentences. And I would begin with that. So rather than just staying quiet, pick something that you do feel confident saying and express it simply. I've given examples on the channel before about me explaining something at 3 different levels of complexity, like talking about a pair of shoes, or talking about, I forget the examples I give, but if you look at, if you search, I think like shoes, just the word shoes on my channel, you will find that video. So this is me talking about different, or explaining something at different levels of complexity. So let's say I want to talk about my weekend with somebody, and this is a common thing I get from people. So they are often good at talking about their work, but as soon as a coworker asks them about their weekend, then they maybe forget what they want to say, or they can't express themselves. So the easiest thing to do is just begin with the simple past. So if you want to talk about the past, you don't need to use like a complicated sentence like I just gave. I gave that example because someone was asking about that. But if I just want to talk about what I did, I just say I saw a movie. Very simple. We're just using the simple past. Very easy. So I don't need to make a complicated sentence, or I don't need to try to put a lot of complicated clauses in the same sentence. I can make just a few sentences. So I saw a movie. It was interesting. Let me write that. So I saw a movie. It was interesting, or I liked it. So I liked it, very simple. It was about whatever. It was about a boy and a girl going fishing. Okay? So you don't need to make a complicated sentence or like one long thing that's trying to explain everything. Just say, yeah, what did you do yesterday? What did you do over the weekend? Oh, I saw a movie. I went to the park. I read a book. I played with my family. I saw a baseball game. Okay? So even native speakers, they will usually begin a sentence or like begin a response with something simple. All right. Unless there's a really amazing story or something amazing or surprising that happened, most people would just begin with something like this. So the conversation, if you pay attention to conversations, they often go like this. Like someone will ask a question, like especially a coworker, like, oh, how was your weekend? So it will begin like they're usually just being polite. It's just, hey, how are you? I'm doing fine. And if it's a good friend of yours, maybe you have a longer conversation, but it usually starts quite simple. So, oh, I saw a movie. And like, yeah, the movie was good, or you would, if the person is interested or you want to talk about it more, that's where you can start having more complex sentences in explaining something. But even then, you can still use simple sentences to explain yourself. So don't feel nervous about that you like have to use something complicated. The point is just to express yourself, and often natives will do the same thing. Natives will just say, "Oh, I saw a movie. It was a good movie. It was fun, or it was not very good. It wasn't very good." So if we talk more about it, then we can make the sentences a bit more complex, but you don't have to do that. All right? But this is a very easy way when people ask what you did, especially over the weekend, or how was your week or your vacation or something. Oh, it was fun. And most people don't really care to listen to a long story anyway. They're probably just being polite and just connecting with you a little bit. So if they start asking you questions, then you can explain more, and it's okay if you don't say it perfectly, but I would just keep it simple. And this is why we talked about building up your ability to speak at the beginning of this video. So I was talking about I want, and then I want something, or I want to do something, or I want you, or I want him or her or them to do something. All right? So we begin by getting comfortable by really understanding the basics. I know a lot of people think, oh, I know that. Well, if you know that, why are you not using it fluently? Okay? You should know something to the point where you feel confident saying something. If you don't feel confident saying it, you don't really know it. You know it like well enough to recognize that information, but you need to know it well enough to speak. That's really the goal. You need to keep learning, keep reviewing, keep understanding something until you feel, yeah, I got it. And then you will have the confidence to speak. So you don't learn something a little bit and then either force yourself to speak, or maybe you just say nothing because you're too shy. Just continue to get more examples about that thing until you feel you really understand it. And sometimes it happens very quickly. Sometimes it can take longer. But the more examples you get, the faster you improve. Okay? Hopefully this makes sense. So there are always easier ways, simple ways to express things. You can take like really any sentence you like, and I can give you a simplified version of it that's perfectly fine for conversations. Okay. All right. I think everybody's getting it though. Let's see here. Check these other. All right. Again, Jam, do you like baseball? Yesterday, I watched your video about baseball phrases. Those phrases use different situations like dating. Yes. Well, yeah, I played baseball. I use that also. It's like an American thing. I thought people would, I could talk about something else. But I like to, you'll notice, like I talked about like pivoting. So like, it's like the connection is baseball, and then maybe I'll talk about some different things related to that just to make it a little bit easier to understand. If I completely change the example and the context, it becomes more difficult to understand. Your explanation on the fact that there are more than one way to say the same idea and how to practice that approach is really helpful. That has never occurred to me before. Yeah. So often we don't think about these things, but this is what's happening in your native language. All right. And we know this is true because let's say there's like some activity happens. Let's say there is, a car crash. If we just imagine I'm going to draw this badly, but here's here's a car crash. If 5 people, let's say 5 native people, 5 people watch this, they're each going to describe it in a slightly different way, okay? They might use some of the same vocabulary, but a lot of the vocabulary will be different. And I've talked about this in many videos before. Like if you watch my video on how to make espresso in English, so I give an example. This is some naturally varied review where you look at different people explaining the same thing. So if I do a video about some different people talking about a car crash, they're going. You could kind of put the vocabulary on a bell curve like this. So some words are going to be used a lot, like crash. Like the word crash gets used 10 times. Like everybody uses the word crash, but maybe only 2 people use a different word, or somebody else uses some other word like this. But if you could take all the vocabulary that people use, it would fit on a bell curve like this. And so what we try to do is focus on these most important things, and you would learn a few of these other ones as well. Like in the espresso video, you'll see people talking about tamping the coffee down. So they have it's like a little press where the ground coffee goes, and there's like a kind of metal piece that fits on top of that, kind of like this, to tamp the coffee down. And so everybody uses that expression because everybody goes through this specific activity. But some people talk about like a word in coffee is like the aroma. So the aroma of the coffee is the smell. All right? The aroma of the coffee. All right? But maybe only like 2 people would use the word aroma. Someone else might say smell or some other word, or not talk about it at all. Okay? So usually what happens when people are learning English as a second language, what I call just the ESL approach. So they take a word, they begin with their native language, and then they try to translate something into English. And that's why you get like a single way of saying something. Like what's the word for snow in your native language, and then you get the word, you just look up in a dictionary and you get the word snow. Or what's the word for money in your native language, and then you get like let's say just a Japanese example, like the word for money is like okane, just as an example. And in English we get money. But a native speaker would actually learn many, many different ways of saying money. They would talk about bills or change or cash or greenbacks or frog skins or whatever people want to say. But just like, I don't know, people have different words for snow. You call it powder. Or, there are different ways to express it as well. But the point is, when you're learning it like a native, you're actually not beginning from your native language and learning it in English. In the English as a first language approach, we want to begin with the situation, and then you learn, oh, look at that, there are many different ways. So lots of different vocabulary, or even ways we could construct sentences, so grammar as well. There are different ways of expressing that. So here's a car crash. How did different people talk about a car crash? Yes, a buck, says Mary. $5, $5, 5 bills, 5 bones. Lots of different ways to talk about money. All right? So the point is, we're looking at a situation. I really want you to think about this. The natural way for a non-native to think about this is like, okay, I have something in my native language that I want to say. I need to translate that into English. But I'm trying to stop you from doing that. I don't want you to do that. So I don't want you to do that. Instead, I want you to think about the situation and see how natives would describe that. So I've given this example before as well. So if I drop something on my head or I hurt myself, and I'm like a Japanese person, I would say ita, or I would say itai, ita, or I might say like kso. I would say different things in that situation. And without you needing a translation, you can understand what I'm saying. So itai is like ouch or painful. Okay? So that's how we do it. That's how you get fluent, and you don't need to be a native to learn like one. That's the whole point. So natives they're not born native. They just basically they learn English as a first language, and so they become native, what we would call them as being native. All right, Margot says, I haven't gone fishing since 1 year ago. Yeah. So I haven't gone fishing since a year ago or since 1 year ago. Very good. Again, Jim says, I didn't know before the 5-second rule. If you drop food, you could pull that food in under 5 seconds and you could eat that food. Yes, actually, like some people have a 5-second rule. Some people have a 3-second rule. I guess it depends on how dirty your floors are or where you are if you're eating outside or something. Dunya says, I am new to the channel and I would like to start with you. I want to speak the language fluently because I understand, but I'm not encouraged to speak. Yes, so that's what we do. The real secret to fluency is just to understand the language well enough to have the confidence to speak. All right, that's really it. So you don't get fluent by repeating things again and again. Like if I'm trying to teach you a new word, like if I want to teach you, I don't know, like money, I could just repeat that word again and again, but that doesn't really help you understand the word better. You need lots of different examples, and you need examples from different native speakers in order to understand things. Kind says, just open the conversation with a simple question. Yes, you could do that as well. Also, like you can also ask your coworkers, what did they do over the weekend? So that's another thing you can do to try to control the conversation, and that way it's easier to kind of prepare some questions first, if that would help you. Mayor says, hello, Drew from Armenia. Thank you for this video. It's my pleasure. All right, let's see, Wilson from Florida. Lucas also in Florida. Let's see. All right, how's it going, Drew? Ilder is back Monday morning in English review. I'm all ears. Glad to hear. Lucas says, today the audio, sound, volume, it is correct. I'm doing the same thing every time. I don't do anything different, so I don't know. Visual says, immigration. Keiko says, hello, long time no see, long time no talk, teacher. Well, welcome back. Hussein, ESL is the most dangerous method to learn English. Yes. Yes, I say, like, not only is it dangerous, but it takes a long time. But I want people to know I'm not mad at you for learning this way. It's just how everybody is taught the language. And so I'm trying to show you it's not your fault, but it is easy to learn the native way, and it just means learning English as a first language. That's it. Vanalette says, I'm from Laos. Nice to see you there. Your method is the best, says Sandra. Well, it should be. It's the way we all got fluent in our native language. I didn't create anything new. I'm kind of like reminding people of how they learned. Let's see, Roko, if I'm pronouncing that, Rokopes. Do you think animals are better learners than humans because animals can understand humans better than humans can understand them? Well, I mean, humans, like an animal can understand like the raw emotion and what we do. Like a dog can look at us and know if we're angry or something like that. They're very good at reading our facial expressions. But a dog can't really watch Harry Potter and understand what's happening. So I don't know. It depends on what you mean by learning. But, you know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Maya says, how long should one practice speaking to become an international speaker or like to become a native speaker? Thank you. Well, you don't have to practice. The goal is not to practice speaking. The goal is to like understand the language better so you have the confidence to speak. Now, if you're talking about being like a speaker on a stage, that's a different kind of thing. So I'll in this similar kind of way, like the difference between ESL and EFL. If we have the ESL approach, this is kind of the idea that people would perform an action and we just repeat it again and again, and that's how we get fluent. Like I'm learning to juggle. So if I take, I don't know, 3 markers and I start like juggling them around, when I first do that, I'm not going to do it very well. But if I continue to practice, I'm doing the same activity over and over again, and eventually I will learn to do it. All right. So that's one way of learning. But in this example, the markers aren't doing anything different. The markers are just responding to what I do. So I throw the marker up and it comes back down, and I can juggle the markers in this way. But the difference between this and a conversation is I don't know what's going to happen in a conversation. Conversation and communication in general is dynamic. So I can't prepare for a conversation in the same way. I just have to like be ready to respond to anything that someone might say. So me learning Japanese, I can't like try to repeat certain phrases over and over again because people might not use those phrases in a conversation. They might say something different or I don't know what they'll say. So it's dynamic. So this is why we don't get fluent by just repeating things again and again. We get fluent by understanding the language really well. And that's what gives us the confidence to respond automatically, to hear things, and I recognize what people are saying, but I can also respond back. All right. So the goal is not like to try to repeat things like I'm practicing for a speech. All right. So that goal of like practice makes perfect. That's where you're doing some activity where you can control the outcome and you know how it's going to be every time. So if I'm practicing for a dive, like I'm going to dive off of in an Olympic event, like a diving event, I can practice that dive over and over until I get it perfect. But if I don't know what's actually going to happen on the dive day, I have to be ready for anything because I don't know what's going to happen. All right, so that's why communication is different from learning to ride a bike or learning to make a pizza or anything else that just has some steps and you can practice those things and get better. What you're actually doing when you're learning a language is you're becoming more familiar and understanding the language better so you feel confident about speaking. If you don't really understand anything, it doesn't matter how many times you repeat it. Okay, so if I hear a word but I don't really know it, it's not going to help me to just repeat that word again and again. So if you're practicing for a particular speech, then it probably shouldn't take that long. I don't know, a day or a few days or something. It depends on the speech. If you're just trying to memorize a speech so you can say it to people. But if you want to have dynamic communication, you really just continue to learn and learn more vocabulary, understand more grammar, and do that the same thing with everything. But this process happens much faster if you learn like a native speaker rather than trying to learn it through your native language. All right, let's see here. All right, please tell the right way for learning English, says the Hack Wizards Army. I think I explained that already. It's just learning English as a first language. It's really that simple. Lucas says, my better version in English language I want to obtain, I want to get. By the way, in my country, the first language is Portuguese, and there is not a second language for now. Yeah, so it doesn't matter what your first language is. You can learn many languages as a first language. All right. It's Baga again. Nazir, you turn the most boring days of the week, like Monday and Thursday, into something a lot of fun. I'm glad to hear it. All right, Dunya says, honestly, this is the first broadcast I've watched of yours that I watched. You're a wonderful professor. That's great. Yes, I'm actually not a professor. I know people call me that. That's just like a term for teachers or whatever. But Miriam says, would you please read my to last comment? I don't know. Post it again, Miriam, because sometimes the chat moves too quickly and I can't remember. Just post it again for me if you can find it. Let's see. Delali says, hi, teacher. Sooner I will have my home country heading to UK, and I want to become fluent. That's my dream, though, and how to make this happen. Thank you. Again, anybody else who's been in the video for a while or who's followed me for a while, what do we respond to this? Learn English as a first language. That's it. Creative says, greetings from Albania. I want to learn English more, but I suck at grammar. Where can I start? If you want to practice like beginning grammar, you want to understand that really well, watch my beginning grammar playlist here on the channel. Hello, teacher. I have a question. Is there an abbreviation for English? You mean the word English? Sometimes you will see it abbreviated as like ENG. Like English that way. But is that what you mean? Paulo says, what do you think about Brazilians? A guy studied English like it's not normally. We are not polyglots, guys. We need to change the history. Yeah, I don't like, I'm not a polyglot. I speak Japanese and English, and I know a little bit of French and Spanish, but not well enough to say them or to speak well. So I don't know, like, it's interesting whenever I will see, and I don't really watch many videos on YouTube about language learning. Actually, I should probably maybe watch some more. Maybe I can learn something. But typically I see people doing like lots of complicated stuff because that makes for like a more interesting video, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I would make, like, my video on learning Japanese would be 1 minute long. It's like, learn Japanese as a first language. That's it. And then I would just do that with any other language I'm trying to learn. But I don't know, like, if some people are like particularly good at learning different languages, because I mean, it seems like you would understand the process quite well if you learn a second language and then an additional language. You would come to understand languages in general, but also it's kind of difficult to learn many languages and have that same level of communication. So you would have your primary language, and you might have 1 or 2 languages that you know really well, that you have a good vocabulary in, but you probably can't speak about lots of different things in all of those different languages. But for me, like, I would actually like to learn more languages, but it's more important for me to try to help lots of people learn my own language. Like, just that, solving that problem is more interesting to me right now. It's still Sunday in Vancouver, says Mary. Let's see. Today I saw the word kale means money. That's interesting. I've not heard that. Louisa says, thank you very much. La Universidad says, are you German? Yeah, I got a little German blood in me, I think. Lucas, I think in my opinion, I am brown belt of English, idiom. I need you, a teacher, to give me the black belt. Well, if you got a brown belt already, then you can just keep doing what you're doing. Explain your background. You're talking about like my ethnicity or whatever, or where I'm from? I'm like an American mix of different stuff, I guess. How many days does it take to learn English? All right, here's another question I'll answer about like ESL versus EFL. Because we're working on like updating an article on our site about that as well. Because people ask about this. So how many days does it take to get fluent in English? The simple answer to this is that you shouldn't be thinking about like how many days. It's more how quickly can you understand just one word or phrase. How long does it take to do that? You can, I don't know, a minute, a few seconds, depending on how quickly you learn that thing. But the typical ESL approach is like we continue learning more and more words because we think, okay, when I get to 1,000 words, like I get fluent at 1,000 words. That's the idea. So you keep learning more. People think they need to know more words to speak. But the truth is that you actually become fluent in individual words and phrases as you learn them. All right? So if I learn something and I don't really understand it, then I'm not more fluent. I kind of recognize some information, but I can't feel confident about saying that, so I keep my mouth shut. All right? But if I'm trying to learn something and I actually focus on that thing and learn it really well, I'm getting fluent in all of these things. So most people who are learning English as a second language, they maybe get fluent in some of these words. But most of them, they only know to a low degree. So they don't have like a strong command of the language. So it doesn't matter how many words you know. What's important is how well you know the vocabulary. And this is why you will find native children, like my 2-year-old or my like 5-year-old and 8-year-old daughter, they can speak better English and Japanese or really better English in this case, than a lot of adult learners who are trying to learn English, even though those adult learners would know more words than my daughters do. Okay? So my daughters, I'm training them to be fluent in the language rather than just trying to give them a bunch of words to memorize. I don't want them to only recognize information. So a lot of learners will say, oh, I understand, so I can recognize something in context. When someone is talking to me, I can understand, but I don't feel confident about speaking because you don't really know the vocabulary very well. You don't really feel confident about it. You still have some kind of doubt or something, whatever that is. So you can think about an individual word or phrase. We begin with 0 and we get to 100 kind of level of fluency with that individual word or phrase. So when you first hear it, you might not know what that means. And so your level of understanding is down here. But as you hear it again and again and again in different contexts, oh wow, like now you really feel confident I really understand the word, and now I'm at the level where I can express it fluently. But what most learners are doing is they kind of get like maybe halfway. They learn something up to here, and then they stop and they move on to the next word. So as soon as they remember something, like they can't actually remember it well enough to use it fluently, and they move on to the next word. Okay? Now what's interesting is this seems like a faster way to learn, but you're not really getting fluent, so you're still wasting your time. This way it's a little bit slower at the beginning, but it accelerates very quickly, and that's why kids can speak fluently. So even a few years old, they can express themselves. Like my younger daughter, 5 years old, speaking Japanese and English. You know, like it's not like a big deal to do that. And her English is not as good as her Japanese, but like even to watch her, you know, speaking either language is like, wow, it's great that you can do that. Or she will know words that I didn't expect because she just learned it from context in the same way I'm talking about in this video. So you would have these two different approaches, and that's why you don't have to think about how long it takes you to get fluent, because you could get fluent in, 1 minute in a particular word, and then you just do that again and again and again and again. All right? So don't do this. Don't learn a bunch of words, get a textbook and have a whole bunch of vocabulary in there that you don't really know. Get a few words. Know them really well so that you can use them in conversations. And then do that again. That's how you get fluent. All right. So it can be very quick, and the process accelerates if you do it correctly. Otherwise, you kind of stay stuck, and you can't really have good conversations. Ikram says, I live 13 years in Canada and still not fluent. Yeah. So again, you can be around native speakers. Native speakers are not like a magic dust on you, like some fairy dust that magically makes you fluent. Native speakers are helpful, and it's great if you can speak with them, but if you don't feel confident speaking, then native speakers aren't going to help you do anything. So the great news is you can do all of this by yourself. You can actually learn and get fluent without speaking with anybody, because fluency really comes from you understanding the language well. All right? When you actually start speaking, that's a very small part of the fluency building process. Please suggest some English grammar books for IELTS exam. I don't focus on the IELTS, so you should ask someone who focuses on that. I wouldn't really practice with any books about that anyway. I would spend my time getting native examples like we do in Fluent for Life. Lucas says, I know at least the minimum, the max, over 3,000 words in English. That's great. Can you use them fluently? That's the real question. Creators again, hey teacher, I'm only not good in English tenses. We kind of understand them, but not good at meaning. I'm not confident in them, and I'm not sure which one to use and when. Do you have a video on that? Yes, I have many videos. Just search grammar, and also Fluent for Life. We have the whole program organized by grammar points, so you can search particular grammar points and learn how to use those fluently. Daniel says, is it possible to use ChatGPT for learning English? What do you think of AI for learning languages? It's interesting. I actually use AI for like writing and testing things for lessons, but I found that AI I think it's like at ChatGPT 3.5, I think. So I don't have like level 4 or whatever. It's pretty good, but there's still some mistakes and it doesn't quite understand things. I wouldn't trust ChatGPT to give me examples. I would trust Google to do that because Google is going to find examples for me. So I'm sure I could, like if I'm very specific with ChatGPT and I'm trying to get some naturally varied review, so I will say, give me 10 examples of this grammar point in some different sentences or something like that. It's helpful, but it's not really at the level where it could teach you well. Another thing about ChatGPT is that it's if you just ask ChatGPT, like I was trying to, you can't really teach ChatGPT to do anything. You can teach it within a conversation, but you can't affect. It's kind of like locked. You can't like, I can't teach ChatGPT how to teach languages the way I do. But within a conversation, I can help it understand that way, so it could like explain things the way I do. But it's still, if you just ask ChatGPT, hey, how do you learn a language? It's just going to take information it got from other people who teach the typical way. And so it's not going to give you like anything better than a normal, like here are some grammar points, try to memorize these, and the typical advice you would get from people about speaking before you feel comfortable, or anything else like that, like any kind of typical advice. So I've not found it yet to be a really good kind of material or machine for doing that. It's got some limited use if you work a lot with it. So if I have to write something, I can ask ChatGPT to do something, but I have to go back and do lots of corrections. Miriam says, let's say your lead asks you whether you send that certain email, which is correct. I have sent it 2 days ago, or I sent it 2 days ago. Yeah, you would just say, I sent it. I sent it. So you wouldn't like have sent it. You're talking about like the experience of doing something, but in this you would just say like I sent it. Again, just use the simple past. So you can also get the answer from like if you pay attention to what the person says. Let me look at your question again. Like let's say the question is, so did you send that email? So the answer is really in the question. Get the simple past in the question, so we give simple past in the answer. Yes, I did. All right, the answer is in the question. So if you listen for what people are doing, it's like, especially with questions, it's easy because you will get the answer as the first word of the question they're asking you. So if your boss says, did you do something? It's yes, I did, or no, I did not. All right, just simple past in the question, simple past in your response. And so the same thing, like, have you done something? So let's say, have you done something? Then the answer would be yes, I have, or no, I have not. Okay? So you don't need to make it complicated. I could say, like, your boss says, did you send the email? Yes, I have sent it. I could say that, but you wouldn't want to say that. You just respond simply. Did you? I did. Okay? Have you? I have, or I have not. All right? So pay attention. A lot of people get nervous in conversations, and so their ears almost close up a little bit. But if you just listen, like, did you do something? I did. Okay. So listen for the key word. It comes first, especially with questions. Let's see. Okay. Ilda says, I was married. Girl with name right. Later, I knew her previous name always. I was a married girl. You mean you were married to a girl, or what do you mean? Paulo says, your videos are very helpful for me. Thanks. Glad to hear it. Lucas says, thanks, teacher. Comments in this channel can be so funny and entertaining. Let's see. Funny experience, says Miriam again. When I talk in my mind, I'm fluent, but when it comes to speaking, my mind is slower and sometimes not as good as when I heard it in my mind. Yeah, often that's something a lot of learners will say. So they kind of, they feel more confident, or they can project that confidence more in their mind, but it means you still have worries about something. So even if you say something well in your mind, you're still worried about, well, maybe they'll think I'll say the wrong thing, or my pronunciation will be bad or something. In that case, focus on a particular thing you want to say, make sure you really understand that, and then you will feel more confident about speaking. But that's a very common complaint or issue that people have. Manu says, I've been writing English in games and with friends for years already. I write it every day, but I still haven't started speaking it all. Ain't fluent, but I already have a decent knowledge, so I'm here. Welcome. Yes, again, until you feel confident about particular words or phrases, remember, you can be fluent in one word and not fluent in another, okay? That happens with everybody. So if you don't feel confident about something, that's what you should focus on. Lucas says, in my opinion, one time that you learn something in English language, you never forget it completely. Yeah, that can happen. Cedar says, hi, Drew. Nice to see you here. Have a great week. I'll watch this video again soon. Thanks so much. It's my pleasure. Frida says, hi, teacher from Bolivia. Juan Carlos, I think I'll never be fluent because took ESL classes when I enrolled in GED class and after a while dropped out. Nowadays, I'm trying just to watch conversation speeches and more, but hopefully it helps. Yes. So yes, most people, if you enroll in classes or you take private lessons or something, it's almost all going to be English as a second language lessons. And even if it's not, even if you're learning the way I teach, you still need more examples of vocabulary from regular people. So I'm trying to make my language easier for people to understand. So it's going to sound different than how people normally speak. All right, they will just use different vocabulary, or they will speak faster. The pronunciation will be different. So that's why in a program like Fluent for Life, we want to give you lots of examples of how natives actually speak. And that's when you get prepared, you feel much more confident for real conversations after you see how natives are doing things. Creators again, hi teacher, I'm only half good in English, and to be honest, I can learn English to fluent level. Do you think I can learn German to B2 category because German and English are close? I don't really see a difference between learning different languages at a particular level. I guess like German and English are sort of similar, but I don't know enough about German to answer that question. But in general, if you learn something as a first language, you can learn it quickly and certainly much faster than doing it the traditional way. Vivek says, it's British English or American pronunciation. I am speaking with American English pronunciation. DMS Brazil is in the house. Well, look at that. We got through all the comments. Now I can enjoy a well-deserved sip of my natural mineral water over here. Neil says, if people spoke clearly, it would be a lot easier. Most people speak so quickly that it makes me nervous. Yeah. And so again, this is why we have to prepare people. You have to watch people speaking. You have to be prepared for that. If you watch little kids are paying attention to their parents or other adults and watching them speak. And they get used to understanding that. So you have to learn the same way. Okay? That's how you do it. Let's see. Brazilian is in the building. All right, let's see. What things help my writing? Just writing more. That would be the easy thing to do. Gansham, 2 days. You mean 2 days ago, I asked my mom how I learned our native language. My mom told me that when you were asking, I told my mom why some people don't learn that way like our native language. It happens. So again, most people think they need to learn another language in a different way. Like that there's because it's a different language, you need to learn it a different way, but you don't. You really just understand it. If you learn it well, then you will speak it. That's how you do it. Marion, so much love and gratitude to be the best in EFL teacher. Well, it's my pleasure. Again, everybody should be learning this way, and this is the fastest way to get fluent if you want to be fluent. But I can understand that people have been learning the English as a language for so long, it's just much harder for them to make the switch. They're trying to hold on to translations or other things. But hopefully in this video, you've seen some steps that make it easier to do that. Try to simplify things. If you get a long sentence, don't just jump to translate it. Look for pieces of it that you do understand and see if you can use that to make the whole sentence easier to understand. And then take different related examples and see what natives might say in those similar sentences, or even just if you make those sentences yourself, and that will help your brain understand these things much better. So don't make completely new sentences. Keep one thing the same and change one other thing. It's kind of like a science experiment a little bit. All right, well, hopefully everybody's getting it. We're done with this video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I think the next video should be Thursday, 3 days from now. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about. So if you have any questions, post them in the chat. But yeah, it'll probably be talking about learning English as a first language. I'll probably be talking about that. But thank you all for joining me. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.